So, as I said in the previous video, we have two ways of looking at demand. We can use what's called the demand schedule, which is this table view. Now, normally economists would have at least one more column that would have quantity supplied. That way we can see where does demand compare to supply and kind of determine prices. But since we're breaking it down first, we just have quantity demanded here. We can also graph this. So when we graph things, that's where we're going to see our demand curve. Okay, so demand curve is the graphical representation of all of our individual quantity demanded. The demand schedule shows that on a graph or on a table here. So when we graph this, a couple of things to keep in mind is that your axes never change. So price is always going to be on the vertical axis and quantity will always be on the horizontal axis. So if you switch those, your graph is going to be wrong. Okay, so here we have the demand curve for the cereal that we looked at before. So what you do to draw your demand curve is that you plot your points. So we said at $10 there was one box demanded. So where those two numbers meet, that's where you put up your quantity demanded point. So we have all of the points from our demand schedule, and then you connect the dots, and that will be your demand curve. Okay, so this is generally what it'll look like. When your information is different, your curve might be slightly different. It just really depends what the data looks like. If we don't have specific information, we just draw a straight downward sloping line to represent demand. Okay, so no matter what product we have, you will see that the demand curve always slopes downwards. So you read a curve, you read the graph like you read a book from left to right. And so when we start at the left and we go right, we notice it's downward sloping. The reason for that is that law of demand, right? As prices increase, consumers want less. And as the prices decrease, consumers want more. That's what gives it its slope. Okay, it gives it its curve. So that is just like a snapshot of the market, right? At one point in time, this is what it looked like. But markets change because we as consumers are easily influenced to change our behavior. So we are influenced two ways. It's either price change that influences our behavior, or it's some non price issue that influences our behavior. Okay, so if it's price related, if the price of the product changes, the only thing that changes is the quantity being demanded. Okay, where we are operating at on the curve has changed. We do not have a new demand curve. We keep the same demand curve. We're just operating at a different point. Okay, so this tends to be understanding the difference between quantity demanded and demand tends to be the most difficult part to understand of all of this. So when you're thinking about this and trying to figure out, I don't know what's changing, you can ask yourself a question. Did the price change? And that's going to tell you what actually the effect is. If the answer is yes, then it's a change in quantity demanded. If the answer is no, it's a change in demand. Okay, so when we want to show a change in quantity demanded, so this means there's a price change. Let's say the price of cereal is $6, so we know 6 boxes are being demanded. If that price were to drop to 2, consumers say, oh, cereal's cheaper now, and then more would be demanded. So we would see that increase to 20 boxes. Okay, so what we show on the curve is from one point to the other. It's just a shift along the same curve. Okay, if the price were to increase to $8, we would go from this point up to this point of 3 boxes, from 20 to 3. Okay, so it's just a shift along the curve. Now, if you ask yourself, did the price change, and the answer is no, then it's a change in demand. That's telling us something else is influencing our behavior. Okay, we have 6 categories for why we're influenced, but for now, just realize something else in life is happening, right? And it doesn't matter what the price is set at, people would want more or less of that product regardless of what the price is. So on the graph, so again, we have here our cereal at $6. If we notice, you know what, the price is still $6, and yet we're seeing like 11 boxes being demanded, then that tells us something else is making this product more appealing to consumers. Okay, even if they raise the price to $8 or $10, people would still want more of this product, which means it has nothing to do with the price of the product. Something else is making cereal desirable. Okay, so you can show this by having two new demand curves. So D1 designates our original demand, and then D2 designates our new demand. So you can see that there was an increase that happened here. Okay, so that's the basics for demand. When you are finished watching the videos here and taking notes, you can go and complete the assignment for today.